about this, may I request and invite on stage Anil Nama, CIO, CtrlS and 𝗀𝗶𝗁𝗏. Anil has been instrumental in the growth of CtrlS Data Centers from a new entrant in the Indian RDC market to the largest rated 4 data center as of today. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Please excuse my slides because this is not a corporate presentation. I have tried to develop on the story that we have heard since morning, especially from the bank side, what they want, from 𝗘𝗱𝗏 side, what they are making, from 𝗘𝗱𝗏𝗿 side, what they are making. And 2 or 3 major points came out. One is we are on a cusp of an India explosion in data center. 2x growth in 2 years, 3x growth in 3 years. Plus there are certain trends that we need to harness. So with that, let me introduce CtrlS. We have multiple facilities around India. These are mostly data centers starting from Hyderabad, Mumbai, etc. What is it that we are going to do in the next 2 years? Or how is this whole thing going to play out? We are all used to on-prem servers, we are used to Ego servers, or we are used to now, post-COVID especially, to take assets onto a public cloud and roll out our applications. End of the day, it's the application we need to run, and people need to connect to it, whether it's employees or customers. So what's happening out there is, you are not getting a single DCs now. Every one of us, whether it is CtrlS, whether it's 𝗀𝗏𝗏, whether it's 𝗃𝗏, whether it's 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, you name the person, they're all developing something which is known as DC parks. These are like industrial parks. You have multiple buildings. The order is hundreds of megawatts is getting consumed in these DC parks. And you can have hyperscales. They can take a whole building for themselves, or you could take even a single server hosting. And that's the co-location change which is coming. So these DC parks are not only getting constructed in a single location, they are coming out in all metros, all convergence points very close to the customer. They are all very fast scale projects everybody is making because the whole volume is growing 2x, 3x in the next 2 to 3 years. So what we made in the last 10 years, the whole data center industry is going to make 200% of it, or going to release it in the market in the next 24 months. For example, you have other locations also coming up. Ahmedabad seems to be now a focus area. We have already seen Kolkata. You would have seen various sites of various providers. Kolkata is becoming another major hub where all the data centers are mushrooming. And then we heard about edge. And everybody is expanding to edge. For us, we have already put in Lucknow, Patna, we've shown you Ahmedabad, Kolkata, and so on and so forth. At each of these edge locations, it's like a compute data center. So if I say a data center campus is like 25-30,000 racks, these edge locations will be between 100 to 300 racks. Now once again, it's not directly consumable by a manufacturing, it's not directly consumable by a bank, because the way they want their edge is much inside their campus. So this you can think is a consolidation points where you put up compute and from there you go ahead. We also have now global. So first of all, global came to India, which is people like 𝗃𝗁𝗏 came to Bloomberg. You have Digital Reality, you have Capital One, we have multiple major data center providers which came to India. And now the Indian data center industry is going global. So because of all the fibers that are being put in place by various providers, various telco providers, they are all slowly expanding to Southeast Asia and Middle East. Because The world over there is very similar to ours. They are also ripe to leapfrog the technology. And this is a journey that is there with all of the Indian DCs. They are slowly planning not only to expand within India, but also looking to expand beyond the shores of it. So, how does it all play out from your perspective when you say a GIS or a hyperscale data center? This is the basics. You put a very large DC campus. In the DC campus, you then put a whole GIS station. Now, GIS station, just for everybody of us, you would have heard power grid and everything. From manufacturing sites, you have 220 kV, 110 kV lines which come to a city. There you have the regulatory commissions which then make it from 110 and 22 kV to 33 kV, which then goes to your nearby distribution company like Adani here. And from there we drop off. These data centers becoming so large, the footprints are 400 megawatts as we heard from extra, they can afford a whole GIS. That means they will directly take the grids. We have also a similar setup in Mumbai. This is roughly 400 megawatts. We got 3 grid lines directly terminating here. So which means whether it's a thermal power coming from Maharashtra grid, whether it's from Rajasthan, some solar plant uploading power to the grid, they can directly land onto your data center. The third thing is green energy. Everybody is investing in green energy. Either they are investing to offset their quota of fossil fuel by strategic investing, or they are trying to do their own. We are also building one such near Amravati, Nagpur. So we are trying to remove the fossil fuels. Now, how does it all calculate? So if we saw the generation 1 to generation 4 comparison in the morning, on the top 1500 is your generation 1 data center. So let's say we have about 500 kilowatt of IT load. We are going back 7-8 years. We have a captive DC running at PUE 3. We take power at 11 kV in our UPS rooms. We would end up at 1500 kilowatts getting generated outside to run our 500 kilowatt of IT. Now, when you adopt these hyperscale data centers with their green energy, with GIS, what happens? Not only is your losses low, but even with only 30%, that is 8 hours out of 24 hours, if you are supplied with a renewable energy, then your generation capacity of fossil fuel, non-green, is only 490 kilowatts. And I have taken a PUE of 1.4, I haven't done it for 1.17 or 1.2. This is the standard, the level 3 that all our data centers are. So 500 kilowatts of your IT load. You are using less than a third of non-renewable energy when you adopt any data center campus or shift your colo there. This can increase. How can it increase? It can increase by us keeping or offsetting through solar plants. So while I may be consuming 100 megawatts, if I am having a 300, 400 megawatt plant, I can distribute that energy during the day and during the night compensate. So I can be 100% green or negative carbon. How are all these are getting measured is something which is known as environmental sustenance efforts that are undertaken. And this has become a benchmark of Indian industry. Gone are the days where you had labor issues, you had people on construction sites who could have died, who had accidents. All of this is getting measured at various standards. These standards are ISO 45001. So if you take us, we have recently celebrated 1 million man days of zero accident for our construction workers in our Chennai DC center. It has become so important, and our potential customers have asked this data to be neutrally validated from a third-party agency. It's not our records. So suddenly this environment green has become very, very important. India has got a special position out there in the world. We enjoy more than 300 days of solar power, as compared to a year of 110 days or 140 days for other years. So whatever we have in terms of additional temperature or heat is adequately compensated by the additional solar power. And this solar is what is leading to all this growth. The second or third point around green energy is not only green energy, it's also all around sustainability. So for example, in Mumbai we put up filtration units. We let go of the potable water. We used to consume 10 lakh liters per day, that's our consumption. We released that. We took the water that was going into 𝗚𝗂𝗂𝗏, we put some filtration plants, and we use that water, clean it ourselves and use it for our a million liters per day is roughly translates to 1,000 households. So at least 1,000 flats can get more water, whereas the water which was treated and going into the sea, we are able to reuse. So this is the power of green that's happening out there. Next is, we all heard that there is something which is known as network. A data center with servers, any server room without network connectivity is of no use. And this is today being fueled by MoRTH, the Government of India National Highway Authority. What they have done is, all the national highways that they are putting fiber along with it. And when you look at that change of all the fiber, I just put Mumbai-Chennai map here. But if you look at that change, suddenly you have terabits of connection. There was a time when above a gig connection in one of the tier 2 cities was an issue. We had those times with banks connecting ATMs through VSATs, and there are times now when we have terabits of internal bandwidth available. If you see here the latency, suddenly as per the latency map, and if we see our own DCDR setups, you could have suddenly a solar pole better suited than up now for your alternatives. Not because of the city, not because of the people, but because of the convergence latency it is bringing on. And this convergence latency is depicted in all the data centers' edge maps. So when I showed you the edge map, it is not that something that I have made. It is where all the fibers are converging. And data centers come up on these groups. So for example, in Mumbai, if you go to 𝗚𝗂𝗏, you will find CtrlS, NetMagic, Reliance, Jio, 𝗚𝗂𝗏, everybody of us in and around 10 kilometers radius. Because that's where the fiber is concerned. So this whole thing that the Government of India is doing is leading to this explosion that's happening. And this is how also we are making the interconnection strategy. Wherever those points are getting made, and you will find a similar map on any of our competition, they would also be zeroing in on those locations. But the idea is, we are least latent to the users. So what's happening out there? What did the hyper-converged or so-called public cloud teach us? So if you remember our own IT setups, we have got a DC, we have got a DR, we may have, if I'm a bank, an NDR, and maximum I may have an offsite backup data. What the public cloud people told us, or whatever their international told us was, you need to have two different cities, each of those cities with two different availability zones, which are connected to each other like our core switch. So we are suddenly not talking about 10 Gbps replication bandwidth. We are talking about 400, 800, 1.6 terabits connectivity between availability zones. To run a web scale, to run a mobile app which is never down, you require 4 active sites. This is the key learning at the infrastructure architecture level that has come in from the way a hyperscale functions. Somebody will call it as availability zone, somebody will call it as Central India site, South India site, but if you go by their nomenclature, underlying is 4 active data centers. A pair of them connected through core switching, and these sites interconnected. So it's no longer possible that a controller can give you all 4. No. You have to mix and match multi-DCs. If you are going for always available application, and as this world post-COVID moves more towards mobile application, as your ERPs, everything become web scale, we are talking zero downtime. We are talking within that zero downtime, we have all the planned activities. We also need to look at all the unplanned activities. This is the major key learning as an architecture that has come. What's happening out there in terms of on-prem and public cloud? So we learned this from public cloud. The OEMs learned it from public cloud. Suddenly you have the likes of Redshift from Red Hat or SUSE Rancher which are coming out with these stacks. And you have now 3 words associated with it. When you move from on-prem to cloud, it is known as cloud adoption. When you move from cloud to on-prem, they call it as cloud repatriation. And working between both is known as a hybrid cloud scenario. So the on-prem side on the last 2 years have come out with a lot of new innovations to try and compete with the likes of public cloud. This is happening mostly because of the stacks that are brought by the OEM. It's not an AWS which is there. It's not a Google which is there. It's the likes of our HP, the Dells, the Cisco's of the world, and few new software providers, which has upended their scale for you to pick and choose. Even in digital native, today you would have both options. And this is the game that is getting played out between hybrid hyperscale. Just remember one thing, that this arrow button represents latency. By you being in a hyperscale data center, the latency will be less, and therefore your workloads can shift faster. This is the key difference which is happening out there. There are multiple changes which are also getting in along with this. You suddenly have a Fortinet guy bringing out a HDR. You suddenly have the global load balancing, WAF, etc. services being brought from CDN providers. Even one of the customers we have put in a cloud player, ZTNA. There are other changes which are being brought in terms of our pervasive artificial intelligence. The only difference is earlier we used to use tools directly connected to AppStack for security, for application performance, for infra monitoring. The change is you put Elasticsearch in between and you connect those tools there. How does it help? If I take a very simple alert reaction for you, then at all the green levels, you can have the AI ops playing. You can have the AI ops guy take an alert of whatever CPU, log into the server and find out whether it is true or false. Even maybe append information in your ticket so that your expert is able to do it. You can have an AI ops team also close certain tickets. Let's say it's at start of a web application. You want to restart a firewall which is up. All that can be done, mundane tasks, by this AI ops tool thereby reducing the human errors and also the fastness. This we have also rolled out. So we have also used the same health stack as 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 cloud, and we have got a whole Kibana of the interface UI interface for it. You can also do it. It's available as part of any Kubernetes. We have also done it for security reporting because that's a pain a data center guy faces. Every security auditor has an individual way of asking reports. It requires a lot of man-hours, man-efforts to support any security compliance. So we created a dump of it. And we created data scientists. We said, Mr. Auditor, please sit with it. Whatever you want, as per your request. We'll create it then and there. This, we call it as SHOP, or self-healing platform. What has that yielded into? We have saved close to 43% across L1, L2, L3 man-hours. If I say per resource, as compared to 2020 in 2020. And it's not rocket science. It's very, very simple, mundane things that we are doing. It's available to you. You can also create your tools. In fact, one of the banks that I met yesterday, they have rolled out 𝗍𝗂𝗃. They have rolled out a similar system for themselves. Security, there's a lot of things which are happening in security. But I want to end my thing by saying that we are still based on vendors supplying things. Just like our AI ops, we as IT guys are not exploring what is to be done. A simple example, instead of using firewall VPNs, I could use a central encryption control VPN. We did this experiment with 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. You wouldn't believe it got us 40% better time. And the last slide, in security, while we put all the sensors out there, people scan us, people send us phishing emails, people do IP abuse. We, all individuals, including me, do not go out there and shout to Mr. INA, to Mr. ISP from where this IP is coming, or to the domain owner of that email address, saying, boss, we're doing something wrong. With the likes of tools of AI that we are coming, if we just start to respond to the owners of these IPs, registering our complaints, it will be a lot more cleaner network. That